Welcome to a new video on my home automation playlist, and today I'm going to play with a new Shelly product that I've received recently. It's the Shelly H&T. When I say new product, it means that new for me. This product has been around for some time, and you might have noticed that I got zoomed up quite a lot to this product. I mean, Shelly's, at least the ones that I had so far, are quite small, but I think this is probably the smallest and the cutest one. And from the H&T, you can probably tell this is a humidity and the temperature sensor. And unlike most of the humidity and the temperature sensor, which are usually incorporated with some control functionality, like with the Sonoff TH1, that it can immediately, switch an output, or like a thermostat, which also has some relays to switch your furnace. This is just a sensor. So it is designed that you place it in your house somewhere, and then you would use the app to set up some scenes. So if this unit detects excess moisture or temperature, then it's going to turn a different Shelly product on, which can operate a blower or a furnace or something else. And to make this setup more convenient, actually it has another design quirk. So if I flip the unit around, you might notice that it has quite an interesting case. So it's this multifaceted sort of like golf ball size unit with both the top and the bottom flattened, but it doesn't have any ports. It doesn't have any ports because this is battery operated. So you unscrew the bottom part, and it reveals this CR123A, this 3-volt lithium battery, which can operate this unit from a year to 18 months on a regular use. And that, of course, it means that most of the time this unit is in sleep, and then from time to time it wakes up from sleep. It measures the temperature and the humidity, and then based on the settings, it's also going to report these measurements. And there are quite a few settings in this unit how it actually does that. That's mostly because it needs to save the battery so it lasts longer. And we are going to go through that features when I get to the app function part of this video. So there are quite a lot of different things that you can do with it, how you can set it up. I'm all going to go through all the different options. I'm going to talk through all the different settings. And because this unit doesn't really do anything in itself, I'm also going to talk about a couple of basic scenarios, how you would set this up to control the other Shelly devices. And of course, if you are not happy with the fact that it runs on a battery, and you definitely want a device which is constantly on and it measures the temperature and then responds to any small changes in the temperature, there is actually a separate part available, a separate product available. Then instead of the battery, it has a different bottom part which plugs into a USB charger, like a USB wall charger, so the unit can operate under constant power supply. The unboxing section of the video is going to be quite short because I've already talked all you need to know about the product and how it looks like. And then in the box, we are not getting an awful lot. I mean, it's usually like the usual packages with any Shelly products. So you have the main specs and the QR codes for different iOS and the Android app. The main specs are here. So I already talked about the battery life and the fact that it's battery powered. And with all Shelly product, this has an embedded web server as well. And if I open the box, I get a molding which holds the product in the center. There is also a leaflet with a QR code to the Facebook group, and there is a small leaflet which is basically the user's manual, and it contains the most important features and the setup procedure. And it's in a single language, so even though it's just one sheet, it's fairly densely printed, and it's going to take you through the main features and the setup process. Let's have a quick look at the website before we move on to the app features. So this is the product page for the Shelly H&T. Sometimes I say T and H, but well, officially it's H&T. And you can see the main specs here. That's pretty much what was mentioned on the box as well. And here on the black model, you see this additional, I want to say hat, but it actually goes under the button, which has the USB port. So that would keep this sensor alive all the time. And moving down, we can see the battery, and there is a port or a pin header at the underside, which I haven't talked about, and that is used for programming and debugging. So just like with any Shelly product, alternative firmware can be uploaded to this device as well, but this is not something that I will cover in this video. And of course it works with all home automation system. Pretty much everything which can handle HTTP would be able to work with the HNT. But again, in this video I just focus on the built-in or the provided Shelly app. And as I mentioned already, the great thing about this Shelly HNT that you can use this device in conjunction with any other Shelly product and set up scenes. So your temperature and humidity sensor is going to control a Shelly, which can control your heater, your boiler, or maybe like a fan, which is going to ventilate the room. So that's pretty much all the product page, and I'm just going to quickly go through the online store. So an HNT costs $19.99 in the European store, and there are different variants available. So there is a black version and there is a white version, and you can buy multiple with discount if you need to. And this is the hat, or well, it's basically the base, which has the USB port. So if you want to run it from external power supply, then that's for 16 euros. And the same in the US store. So the single HNT is $26.87 and the power supply module is $5.59. I'm not going to talk about setting the device up an awful lot because that is adequately described in the user's manual already. And by the way, when you power it up for the first time and you just click on the three dots and add device, then the setup process is fairly simple. And as with any Shelly devices, the app sort of makes you to put it into one room. So I've already put it into my test room. And you can see that the T and H is here, and the battery is 100%, and it measures 26.5 degrees centigrade and 45.5% humidity. And when I click on the device and get to the details page, I can see everything about the device. And since, as I said, it's basically a sensor, so it measures temperature and humidity. So all you can see here is the actual measurements. And because I have it with the cloud service enabled, all the measurements are going up to the cloud, and in the app I can just view them. So as you can see, we are getting a separate temperature and a separate humidity graph. And within the temperature, we are always getting a minimum and a maximum value. And you can see the different dots on the screen, which indicate what time the measurement was taken. So for example, there was a measurement at 8 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, and 1 o'clock. So this is sort of the frequency, how often this unit actually reports measurements to the internet. But that's actually not a fixed frequency, because once we go into the details, we are going to see how it looks like. And you can view the data by different time intervals. So the default is 24 hours, and you can scroll back to any number of days. Just to make the graph look a little bit more interesting. Originally, I had this unit standing in my sort of like planter, which has a lot of flowers. And I think probably on this day, we can see that I must have watered the flower, I don't know, maybe somewhere here. And we can see how the humidity gradually decreases. I don't know which day was that. And then I made up my mind and I moved the sensor into the bathroom because I wanted to see more changes in the humidity. And this is probably one of the day where, or maybe this was the day when I was watering it, or watering in the plants, or maybe we can see a couple of days when both the temperature and the humidity gets up and down. So we can see how it responds to, humidity changes when we take a shower. This is probably one of those days. So you can see that for some reason the humidity was going up since the morning, and then there are some peaks in the evening, which was probably the time when we have taken showers. And as you can see, the temperature rises as well. And of course, you can change the weekly views, which is going to be the same weeks, and you can go back in time, and monthly. But since I only have this device for probably about 2 weeks, I don't have an awful lot of data. So yeah, of course, yearly, I have nothing. And we just change month. This is why I think I have some data now, but probably I don't have anything in April. Okay, no, nothing in April. And of course, you always have the option to download the data. So you just click on download statistics and it's going to show you the CSV file that you've created. I'm not really sure how it looks like in iOS because, well, there is no file system. So probably it just saves the file on the shared space of the application. I think enough is said about the graph, so it's time to move over to the various settings. So first of all, so as you can see, we have 4 different settings panel. So let's just go to the sensor setting first. In this page, we can make some changes on how the sensor works and how the measurements are taken. I've set the temperature unit to Celsius. Well, the humidity is always %, so there is nothing to be changed there. And you can also set a temperature threshold. So as I mentioned previously, the unit sleeps most of the time, and then it wakes up periodically to take a measurement. And then here in this screen, you can specify at what condition it actually sends data to the cloud. Because of course, it probably takes a lot less energy to measure the temperature and the humidity, then measure the temperature and the humidity and also send it off to the internet. So it can still, be aware of the humidity and the temperature of the room, but just not send the measurements to the net. 1 degree is the default setting and I haven't changed that. And I think if you want to regulate, for example, temperature in your room, that's probably good enough. But if you want to manage temperature maybe in a greenhouse where there are a lot more temperature differences, maybe you can set it to 5 and save even more of your battery. There is also temperature offset. So if you find that your Shelly units measures the temperature incorrectly, you can create an offset. And then the similar settings are available for humidity as well. So you can specify at what humidity change the unit should wake up and report the humidity change. You can also do an offset. And as I said, there is a different product available which converts this temperature sensor from battery operated to use external power supply. If you would do that, you can enable the external power supply, and that of course changes this whole wake up behavior, because on an external power supply, this unit would be on and connected 24/7. Moving on to the application settings, we can see that there is just only one option here. If you want to, you can exclude the notification from this device from the event log. Internet options and security. These are the settings that we have seen for all of the Shelly devices. So you can specify the client, the Wi-Fi client. And in here, you set what your Wi-Fi is that this device should connect to. And when I set this device up, of course, it gets a dynamic IP address. And I was getting a notification that it would work optimally if it has a static IP address. So here I was able to specify a static IP address as well. And you can create a backup Wi-Fi as well. So if you have 2 Wi-Fi, so if you have a second Wi-Fi which have a different name, so if this unit is closer to that Wi-Fi, it can connect to that automatically. And also there is an option to set up the Shelly so it creates an own access point. And finally, the last option, which again is available on all devices, that like any Shelly product, this has an embedded web server, and you can specify here if that web server is accessible by anyone or it requires a user ID and a password. But also keep in mind that when you are on battery power, then that web server is pretty much not available unless the device is actually woken up and connected to the Wi-Fi network. So this only makes sense if you use the external power option and your device is alive all the time. Otherwise, it will be really difficult to connect to the embedded web server. But in that case, you can just use the app to set up the device, and that's fine. And finally, we have the 4th settings, which is the general settings of the device. So we have an option to update the firmware, which I believe is the latest one at the moment. You can set the geolocation, you do a factory reset if you need to. And here in the device information, you get information like what the device IDs and the IP and the Wi-Fi name and the signal and everything. Yeah, just make sure that, especially when you are trying to figure out where to place this device, just to keep an eye on the signal level so that when the unit wakes up, it can actually connect to your Wi-Fi network. As I said in the beginning of the video, this is a standalone device. It's only a sensor. It doesn't have any actuators. So to make use of this Shelly HNT, we actually have to set up some scenes. And that's what I'm going to do in the app. So I'm going to click on the scenes. I don't have anything at the moment, so I'm just going to add a new scene. And I want this scene, well, I just want it in a test room. I'm going to pick a picture. And because it's battery operated, I think we should have a scene which is going to send some notification if this unit is low on battery. So I'm just going to call it low battery and click next. So the when condition is, of course, I want this condition based on some settings of the device. So I'm going to select the room where the device is in, T and H. And as you can see, there are a couple of options that are available. Obviously, temperature detection and humidity detection, and also we have battery condition. So let's say if the battery is less than 10%, and I'm going to set it on any change. I'm not going to set it repeatedly, because then once the battery drops below 1%, then it's going to send me a notification every time the battery level gets updated. And so I'm going to add this as a condition. And on the do one, that's going to be fairly simple. I don't want to do any other device to do anything. I just want a notification maybe on my phone. And just, I need to put a text in. Battery, is low in T and H. Okay, and I'm going to add that. So that's basically a low battery indicator. Of course, the activation time, I'm just going to set it to so that it runs 24/7. Of course, I always want to get a notification if the battery is low. So this is our first scene that we have added. Low battery, quite simple. And let's assume we are going to put this TNH in a room where we want to control the humidity. So we need to create a new scene, and I'm going to click on the three lines here and add the scene to the test room. And I'm going to name this turn the fan on. Maybe this is going to be like an extraction fan, which is going to lower the humidity in the room. So I'm going to set it next. And again, the condition is going to be a condition of the TNH, and I'm going to set it on the humidity detection. And let's say if the humidity is more than, I don't know, 75%, I'm going to set it on any change again and add. And I want to do an action. So once the humidity reaches 75%, I want, for example, this extraction fan to be turned on. And let's assume that this extraction fan is actually connected to my 1 p.m. So on the action side, on the same room, I'm going to call the 1 p.m. and I want to change the state of it so it turns on. And of course, this runs 24/7. So I'm going to add this, and now we have a second scene, turn the fan on. And of course, once the fan has dried the room sufficiently, then we also need to turn the fan off. Again, in the test room, I'm going to just pick the same picture. The condition is again on the TNH, but this time, let's say that when the humidity is less than 50%, then that's sufficient for us, and we want to, on the do side, again on the test room and 1 p.m. and change the state and turn it off and save the scene. To regulate the humidity in the room, we have created two scenes. One turns the fan on once the humidity reaches above a certain percentage, and then it also turns the fan off once the humidity has reduced under a certain percentage. And of course, I think you can clearly see how you would do the same setup for temperature as well, or maybe how you do it with combination of humidity and temperature. But in fact, if you noticed, when we are changing or when we are setting up a scene on the when section, so on the condition section, there is an option to add multiple conditions. So you can see that it says TNH when the humidity is greater than 75% and add, and also there is a plus button next to the or. So let's assume that in this room where we want to control the humidity, if the room gets really cold, maybe we don't want any more external air coming in, because let's say it's winter, so there would be more humid and chilly air. So we can add a second condition in. So let's say if the humidity is more than 75%, and I click on the and I select test room and TNH, and now I'm going to select the temperature detection, and let's say if the temperature is more than 15 degrees, and I add, now we can see that the condition changes. So this condition will only trigger if the humidity is greater than 75% and also the temperature is greater than 15 degrees. So let's say in the winter, even if the room is really humid, it's not going to draw more humid air from the outside. With the changes saved, you still only have 2 scenes, or well, 3 with a low battery, but now this wouldn't work in the winter because the temperature check works in conjunction with the humidity check, so that would just not trigger below 15 degrees. I hope you get the idea. So you can, customize fairly, complex scenarios here. And of course, in the when section of the scene, you can combine conditions from different devices. So I'm trying to think about some wild scenarios from the top of my head, but let's say you also have a Shelly door sensor or a window sensor, and if the window is open, again, you don't want to turn the fan on because, well, the window is already open, so that should be able to, regulate the humidity. I think that concludes my review of the Shelly TNH. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.